So a little bit about us. I started training my first service dog in 1998. Her name was Jersey. That was when I was severely disabled by chronic illness myself. I spent 18 years disabled by chronic illness, and during those years, I trained 3 service dogs for myself. At the time, that was very unusual. And I was working in disability information referral and advocacy and disability literature and culture. So I have a lot of background in the disability world. After those 16 years of intensive service dog training, I apprenticed with 2 other professional dog trainers. I got my Certified Professional Dog Trainer Knowledge Assessed certificate and my Care and Prior Academy Certified Training Partner, and opened at your service and have been helping people to train service dogs for themselves since then. Our other trainer is Alex Weiss. Alex also has both personal and professional experience in the field. Alex has been a pet trainer since 2015, and they also worked with their own dog, Hitch, that white pit bull there, to train as their service dog. Hitch had, unfortunately, too many behavioral issues to make him successful as a service dog, so he was career changed. So we have, Alex has experience with that as well. And also Alex is also a certified professional dog trainer knowledge assessed. So that's where we're coming from. So we help people with disabilities train their own service dogs, or family members to train a service dog for a family member, psychiatric or physical. We help people to find the right dog to train if they don't have the right dog. If people do already have a dog they're working with, then we're happy to work with that dog. We do both group and private lessons online, and group classes and in person and online. So we have a lot of clients who are outside of our immediate area who we train with online, and then periodically sometimes people travel to work with us in person too. Or occasionally I can travel to them depending on where they're located. And then we do some related training, therapy dogs, pet and emotional support animal training for handlers with disabilities. I also consult with pet dog trainers who have questions about service dog training or working with handlers with disabilities. And I have a mentorship program where I mentor trainers and aspiring trainers, emerging trainers, to become the excellent trainer that they want to be. So that's what we do. So go ahead, if you haven't already, and type your question in the chat. It can be on any aspect of service dogs or service dog training. I'm going to start reading some of the questions that are already in there, and switch to my reading glasses while you guys are typing if you haven't already. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Welcome, Nicole. I'm just reading. Okay, so let me, you can keep typing in your questions if you haven't already. I'm going to start with what's here. Well, I'm not sure if this is, I think this is a question, Nicole. So you said that your dog needs retraining due to 4 dogs biting him. I'm so sorry to hear that. How awful for you and for your dog. So he's bouncing back. He's 6 and had been working for 5 years. Okay. So I don't know if there's a question in there or if that was just your intro. Oh, we've got another person joining us. Welcome, Kathy. So we're just starting to take questions. We just did the introduction, and now I'm taking some questions. So go ahead and let us know where you're located and what your question is in the chat, and and we'll catch you up. Okay, so Sharon has a question. She says, my dog does great with his tasks, but I'm afraid it is because of treats. If I stop treating, would he stop? So there's a few pieces to that question. So first of all, I want to say, if your dog does great with tasks because of treats, that's great. So that's always where you want to start. I don't know if you're comfortable unmuting and telling me a little bit about what type of tasks they are.
Thanks.
Sure.
So he will detect a panic attack. And it's usually the panic attack starts by sort of hyperventilating, and then, touching the face and whatnot. So when I start to hyperventilate, he'll look at me. And then as soon as I touch my face, he responds.
Great.
And then he sort of responds and then looks at me as if, okay, where is my treat? And then if I have a treat, he will then come on top of me and apply pressure. But there's been time where I didn't have a treat and he would not apply pressure.
Right. Okay, that's great. Thank you for that additional information. Well, it sounds like you're doing a lovely job with him. So you always want a food motivated dog is the easiest dog to train for sure. And especially for anything that involves alerting, you need to have a dog who's really motivated to do it, because you need the dog to sort of drop whatever they're doing. Maybe they're playing, maybe they're sleeping or whatever, and come alert you or interrupt in this case, or whatnot, or respond to a cue that you're not intentionally giving. So a food motivated dog is a wonderful thing in that case. So what I would say is, and I don't know if this is how you've already trained it, I would train it a lot when you're not actually having a panic attack, so that you're stimulating the panic attack. He comes over, this is, hyperventilating or doing this or whatever is your cue, and reward that a lot with treats, and then start to sometimes reward that, and sometimes wait until he gets up on your lap, and then reward for being on your lap. Deep pressure can be tricky to reward. It depends on the dog. Some dogs are so excited about food that they won't stay on your lap. Like some dogs are more motivated by petting and massage or something like this. This is something that we work on in our Helping Hounds class, deep pressure. And what we've found is that sometimes if you have a dog who really likes massage or petting or other types of social contact, that it can be helpful to try to fade out the treats as soon as possible and use those other things as rewards, because the dog is too excited about the treat. For other dogs, though, they're really not that rewarded by that social contact. And then in that case, you have to use the treats and sort of start to spread them out over time. But you always, when people say, like, when can I stop using treats for training? My answer is sort of twofold. Like, one, I will give them an answer about how to start fading them out. But then the other answer is never. Like, you always should use some treats forever, because the dog needs to always believe that there's a good reward in it for them to keep going. Like if I asked you, let's say you work in an office and you go to work Monday through Friday and you get paid every other Wednesday. And one Wednesday you go in and you don't get paid that week. And your boss is like, Sharon, great job this week. Good, keep up the good work, but there's no paycheck. You would probably still go to work the next week. You're thinking eventually they're going to pay me my back pay. Eventually, if they stop paying you, you're going to stop going to work. So the same thing is true of our dogs. We always have to make sure that they believe that today may be payday. And that doesn't mean you have to give them a treat every time. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just ask a follow-up?
Sure.
But is that acceptable for a service dog?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Are you worried like you'll be in public somewhere and somebody will see you give your dog a treat? Yeah. So there's a couple answers to that one too. So one answer is, one of the hardest things sometimes about having a service dog is worrying about what other people think, and all of the sort of pressure around being perfect and having the perfect dog. And you sort of have to leave that where it lies. Like your dog is still a dog. and you want excellent mannerly behavior from them, but they're still a dog and they're never going to be perfect. Like, just like we as people are never perfect. It's completely acceptable to give your dog treats in public. You know, if you've seen like a working security dog at the airport, you know, those beagles who are sniffing luggage, like they're working for every piece of kibble that they eat all day long. That's part of their job. Guide Dogs to the Blind in San Rafael, the biggest guide dog organization in the world. Their handlers still carry some kibbles with them, give their dog an occasional kibble. So it is, you have to do what is going to work for you and your dog. It's really not up to the public to police the way that you train, the level of the dog's training, as long as the dog is meeting the requirements under the ADA and sort of the community standards of being mannerly and unobtrusive and is doing its task trained job, then that's really all you and your dog need to do. You don't need to worry about other people's, it's hard, but you don't need to worry about other people's opinions. I hope that answers that. Thank you. That was a great series of questions. I'm gonna just check the chat and see if other people have questions. Okay, so Nicole, you said that's your intro, but your situation. So I don't know if you want me to say anything about that, if you're just letting me know where you are. So if you do have a question, just come back to that. So AJ has a question. When can I socialize my 7-week-old puppy? You want to start positive, age-appropriate socialization right away. So that means, and when trainers talk about socialization, we often mean something different than what sort of the general public thinks that we mean. Oh, let me get rid of this. We don't need this right now. Oopsie. Okay. So what we mean by socialization is having your puppy experience small amounts of new experiences every day. Positive exposure to strangers of all different shapes and sizes and ages and ways of moving and colors. Exposure to different surfaces, you know, so that your puppy gets used to walking on tile floors and concrete and pavement and gravel, sounds like the public address system in the grocery store, or lawnmowers, or you know, dump trucks or whatever. All of those different sounds that your puppy is going to experience as an adult dog for the rest of their lives. And every dog needs this, but for service dogs, it's even more important, because if you're bringing your dog into public, they're going to experience a lot more novelty, a lot more regularly than a pet dog ever does. So, and to do this, you want to go slowly based on your dog's body language. So that's why we go into socialization a lot in our classes. Our first level class that I'll talk about a little later is called Pearl. And we go over, you know, how to get your puppy used to using the vacuum cleaner, not chasing the vacuum cleaner, getting excited about it, not hiding from it, you know, and how you do that based on your puppy's body language and adjust it based on your own puppy's needs. So things like, you know, getting used to confined spaces, like a crate is a confined space, but if you're in a restaurant, under the table is also a confined space, getting your puppy exposed to that and relaxed and comfortable with that. Being around squirrels and birds and things and still able to sort of keep their head and look at you. So all of those things, you want to start that right away. The sort of guideline that I usually use for puppy socialization is to try to do one field trip about every other day. So I usually say like about 3 times a week. And a field trip should be very short, and the length is gonna depend on the puppy's age. It might just be 5 or 10 minutes. It might just be you don't even make it into the store, you're still in the parking lot. It's going to depend on the puppy, of getting your puppy at a more comfortable place with any type of new novelty. But then on the days that you're home, you can still do socialization. So you can, for example, if it's summer, go into your attic or your basement and get your parka and put on your hood and your snow boots and get your puppy used to how different and weird you look to them when you're all like puffy and big, you know, and your feet are suddenly bigger and louder, you know, or getting an umbrella out and putting that on the floor, or if you have a colander or a salad spinner in your kitchen, put that on the floor because puppies usually only see them on the counter. So just getting your puppy the opportunity to experience new things. And handling is also part of socialization. Getting your puppy comfortable with having their paws handled, their ears, their mouth, their tail, and all of those things. So that should all start right away. The critical developmental period for socialization is up till 16 weeks. So that's only 4 months. So it's really, and then you want to keep doing it for the rest of the puppy's life, but that's that critical period. Let's see, AJ has a follow-up question. What age should I get my puppy to a puppy class near me? Most rewards-based puppy classes start at 8 weeks. So, because I know where you live, AJ, because we've worked with you before, I would say to contact Animal Alliances. And if you want to do an in-person group class, puppy kindergarten, they would be the folks I would recommend in our area. And then you can also, what we recommend for people who have puppies, the ideal, if you have a puppy you want to train as a service dog, is to do an in-person rewards-based puppy kindergarten in your area. You guys are all in Massachusetts, so I can refer you to someone in your area. I can usually refer to a trainer in almost anywhere in the US for that. And then to also sign up for our Pearl class, which I'll talk about a little later, because we cover stuff that a pet manners class doesn't cover. We start to include things about task training foundations and public access foundations. Our classes are just longer and focus on some different stuff that pet manners classes just can't. But that combination is the best. Oh, you moved to Sterling. We will email you afterwards, AJ, with a referral. I don't know off the top of my head who's in Sterling. I think Kat Klein might be, but I need to look at a map. So we'll email you a referral. Thank you for asking that, and congratulations on your new puppy. Okay, Kathy has a question. Okay, so Kathy says, is this class for people who have their own health concerns? I'm interested in training to bring my dog to schools, nursing homes, etc. So that would be what we would call a therapy dog, and we do work with a lot of folks who do that. We have a number of clients who are, say, psychologists, or they work in the schools, you know, occupational therapists in the school, or just something like that, and they want to train their dog to come with them to work and assist clients. And then sometimes there's other people who want to volunteer and do therapy dog training. So we do some of that too. So if that's an interest for you, you can definitely reach out to us. You can email Lori. She can type her email in the chat. Depending on where you are, we can make some recommendations for that. Okay, great question so far. Who else has a question? When do I retire my service dog? He's almost 5 years old. Yeah, so the question about when to retire a service dog, as with so many things with service dogs, is individual. But one question that I would always ask is the dog enjoying working? So sometimes your dog seems to love getting their harness or their vest on, and then at a certain age, you take out the vest or the harness and they go lie down. So that would be one question I would ask is, does your dog seem to really still want to work? Do they still want to go out with you? Are they running over with their tail wagging, when you take out the vest or the harness? Another question is about the dog's health. Sometimes there are issues that the dog wants to work, but it's just hard on their body anymore. And so you might want to start transitioning that dog to doing more in-home tasks. The ideal, really, if you can swing it, is to start training your successor dog when your current dog you think they have another 2 years left to work. Because that way you can start training with your new dog while your current working dog is still enjoying work and is like an excellent role model. They really do learn from each other. I did this with my when my first dog was still working and I started training my second service dog. It was wonderful for him because he saw how much fun she was having and he really wanted to do it, and he was watching her, and it was much faster to train him than when I had to train a dog from scratch with no role model. So having a working service dog who can still be helping you and doing the things that you need while you're also putting in the work to train your new service dog can be wonderful for you, and then also for the dog. I find that it does make training go much faster. And then you can start to slowly transition. So if you have your current service dog or your predecessor dog, needs to spend more time at home resting, but they still love to do some things, or the new dog doesn't yet have all the skills, you can sort of choose which dog is going to do what on the day and transition more slowly. And that seems to be better for the handler, as well as for the dog, especially for the predecessor dog. So they're not getting retired all at once. They're still getting a chance to, strut their stuff. So that's really the ideal. Okay, so you said he loves to work, but when he sees a service dog in public, he freaks out. And he barks once. So yeah, if you have a dog who's not doing well around other dogs, that is a pretty common challenge for service dogs. It's one of the things that makes public access service dogs such a difficult thing to achieve. Most dogs love to work and work at home really well, but it can be hard for a lot of dogs to work in public if they're not comfortable with novelty, if they're not comfortable with strangers, or if they freak out when they see other dogs, because there are so many dogs out there now. It used to be when I started this, I would never see another service dog, and now it's pretty common to see a service dog or to see even people with pet dogs. So if he is freaking out when he sees other dogs, then I would suggest either, meeting with us or another trainer to do some behavior modification on dog reactivity, and see, in part, just to sort of improve your life and the dog's quality of life, to work on that. And then also, there would be the question of, is this dog really appropriate as a public access service dog? And that's going to depend to some degree on how much reactivity there is, and the sort of the flavor of the reactivity. And what I mean by that is, if sometimes you have a dog who's very friendly with other dogs and loves other dogs, but when they see another dog and they can't greet them, they get frustrated and they start barking and leaping into the air. That may be possible to modify and still have that dog work as a service dog. But if the behavior is coming from a place of fear or aggression, you can still modify that and make a lot of progress with that dog, but that dog is going to be under too much stress to work in public. It's going to just not be a good long-term solution. So if he's fine with other dogs not in public, then that would be you know, it's hard to say for sure without a lot more information. That could be some leash reactivity, or it could be that the stress of being in public is making him what he can cope with well when he's not in public, and it's too much combined stress for him in public. Okay, Sharon has another question. Would the fact that my dog is mouthy deter him from his potential as a service dog? Usually not. It would take a pretty extreme level of mouthiness for a dog to be ruled out for that. You know, if he's mouthing with you because he or she is mouthing, he is mouthing on you just because he's excited or he's young, you know, that's a training issue. So trainers often sort of make a differentiation between training and behavior. So there's sort of like behavior is kind of the dog's temperament or personality. And then training is like teaching them to do things or not to do things. So that's a training issue. And that, you know, you would just want to work with a trainer on that. Unless the mouthiness happens, I'm going to qualify that a little bit. If he's not usually mouthy, but then say you're around strangers and he starts mouthing you, or you're around certain noises and he starts mouthing you, or other dogs or something, then that might be a like, help me, I'm stressed in this situation and I'm mouthing you to try to do something with my mouth because I am trying to find a way to cope. Then that might be a signal of something that needs to be looked at. Yeah, if it's only in play mode, that's something that you can train on. You know, because dogs don't always necessarily know that they're working in public. We have to teach them. These are your public manners and these are your off-duty manners, and those two things are different. Yep, great questions. Any other questions before we switch over to resources and more information? You have one more, Sharon? Yeah, you can unmute yourself if you want.
Sorry, I just don't want to monopolize if it was only one question.
That's okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So he is a husky. So that's like always been my concern. So that's where the mouthiness comes from. Also, sometimes where he just right before he goes down to relax, he just lets out this like big sigh, like a howl, and then he just goes down. Is that something that I should be concerned about? Because like it certainly attracts attention. Like people look when he's like howls and then he goes down and relaxes. But you know, I'm not so sure what he's saying, but he's saying something. And then so is that something to be concerned about?
Yeah, vocalizing is tricky. I mean, definitely a service dog, we want to be quiet. It does get a lot of attention if a service dog vocalizes. And you know, in terms of if we look at what the law says that the dog can't fundamentally alter the nature of the service. So if you were at, you know, a chamber music concert, right, or something like that, with very quiet situation, and he howled, that would affect other people's experience, right? But if you were at a hockey game and he howled, nobody would even hear him. So one bark or one sound, usually in most cases, is not going to disqualify, is not going to have the owner of a business be able to tell you to remove your dog, you know, and still be appropriately following the law. But repeated vocalization certainly would, or anything that's making people feel safe or uncomfortable. Like there's a difference between a dog like letting out a sigh before they lie down and a dog who's barking or growling at somebody. So it would be something to try to work on with a trainer to see if there's something that you can do to prevent the sigh howl. You know, if you know it's coming, there might be some things that you could do to kind of train an alternate behavior or give him something else to do. So it's a little hard to say, you know, since I haven't worked with you and your dog and I haven't heard it or seen it in action. But I wouldn't necessarily say that would disqualify him. And I am working with a wonderful husky right now. It's unusual that a husky it works out well as a service dog. But sometimes they do, they just just have to take a little bit of a different approach than you might with like a lab or a golden. But they can be a lot of fun. They've got a lot of personality. It sounds like he's been great for you. All right, let's see. I've got a couple more questions here. AJ says, should I put my puppy in a stroller first to socialize when she's getting her first vaccine? So, oh yeah, that's a great question. So with puppies who are not yet fully vaccinated, the general guideline that we give, and this is also what the American Society of Veterinary Behaviorists recommends, that you don't bring your puppy to places that are frequented by a lot of other dogs. So I'm going to put an asterisk and come back to that. So you shouldn't bring your puppy to a dog park. You shouldn't bring your puppy to a pet store and let them walk around on the pet store floor. Places like that where there's a lot of other dogs and you don't know those dogs' vaccination history. But you should bring your puppy to a puppy kindergarten that is, a well-run, rewards-based puppy kindergarten where the trainer requires everybody to submit vaccination records on their puppy. That's what the puppy kindergarten is for. We bleach mop the floor. We're getting records on all of the dogs. So it's all dogs, all puppies that are the same age. And we are keeping the floor clean, and we know that all the puppies are getting their shot. So that's one thing. But then it's fine. It's recommended to bring your puppy to places that are not like dog hangouts. So, if you're going to get your snow tires put on your car, you can bring your most mechanics, not all of them, but a lot of them allow dogs while you're sitting there in the waiting room, and you can sit there in the waiting room with your puppy because the chances that somebody else has brought another dog in there that's got, a communicable disease are pretty low. It's not impossible. But what vets who are familiar with behavior and service dog trainers all agree on is that the risk to your puppy is the health risk is lower than the behavioral risk. So it's more important to socialize the puppy than to sort of put them in bubble wrap and never bring them anywhere out of a risk of disease. So you just want to be, careful, but not overly cautious. So bring your puppy to kindergarten, bring your puppy to places that are not dog hangouts. If you're going to the pet store, that's when you would carry your puppy or bring them in a stroller or something like that. Okay, Nicole has a question. If a dog would bark or lunge at him, he would become fearful, and he's a 100-pound black lab Malinois mix. I can control him, otherwise he would have bitten back at the other dog next door when she bit him. Only once I had to drop to the ground and become a paperweight in our own yard when he felt threatened. This is why he hasn't worked in a year. I'm so sorry you're going through that. That's so hard when you're living next to, if you're in a situation where you can't get away from a dog that's aggressing at your dog. Yeah, if he is, really out of control around other dogs in public, that would definitely be something to work with a trainer on, for your sake as well as his, to help him regain some of his confidence and his training around other dogs, and help him, become more of the dog that he once was and that he's capable of being. But probably, if it's a really significant reaction to other dogs, and it's not just the next door neighbor dog, then it's probably not going to be in the cards for him to go into public access, because he is always going to be, I've been there and I've worked with a lot of clients that have been in this situation. The tricky thing about dog reactivity, if you're dealing with significant dog reactivity, is that you could go out and not see another dog, or you could go out and see several dogs, and you never know which it's going to be. And you, as the handler, are always going to be under stress, worrying that there's another dog coming. And especially a lot of our clients have anxiety disorders. A lot of our clients have PTSD, social anxiety, agoraphobia, autism spectrum, things that already make life stressful and anxiety provoking. If you are also dealing with the anxiety of like, is there going to be another dog? That tends to be counterproductive. And I also believe, although we can't know for sure, that what I've seen is that dogs that are dog reactive, service dogs, I do think that they are also on edge looking to see if there's going to be another dog. They just don't seem to ever fully relax because sometimes there's a dog and sometimes there isn't, and they don't know. So it's the same, going back to Sharon's question, it's the same reason on the opposite end of the scale of why sometimes giving a treat and having your dog always think there may be in a treat keeps them doing the good behavior. If your dog is always worrying that there may be another dog, that can just keep making them stress even when there isn't one. Okay, sorry, Nicole has more. I can tell him to leave it. He lets go. I have barely taken him anywhere till I can guarantee he will be okay in public. I've only taken him to a couple of doctor's offices in the past year. Where he is 6, should I just retire him from work and have him work at my wife's group home as a therapy dog? He's for medical and not mental, so it's kind of worse. Yeah, that's tough. So these are great questions. In terms of the question about retiring him, you know, I think that the way that you're thinking about this, about what can he do, what's going to be good for you and good for him, for you, for your wife, and the public, makes a lot of sense. You know, there's no rule that says that a service dog has to be able to do everything all the time. So often, especially if you have a physical disability, the dog can still do tasks and work that help you at home. And then maybe it would be great for him to go and work as a therapy dog in this situation, if you know that there's no other dogs there and it's a really controlled environment, you know, like something like that, that could be great if both, you know, he and your wife seem to like it, and the people who live or work there also seem to like it. And then you could have him, you know, do tasks at home, you know, if that's helpful for you when he is home. But I definitely will, you know, I would say it makes sense to start thinking about getting a successor dog, with the caveat that the living situation that you're describing is probably going to affect any dog that you have. And so that would be a concern about those next door neighbor dogs and how they would affect your successor dog. So that would be something, you know, to think about, whether that you want to work with a trainer to see if there are ways that can be mediated and reduce the impact and sort of set your next dog up for success in terms of if you're still living there or whether it's possible to move. You know, there's a lot of pieces that go into that, but that would be a concern too if those next door neighbor dogs are so difficult on your dog. Dogs are social animals and they do learn from other dogs. So that would be, it would also be a reason to do some behavior modification with your current dog, so that when you get your successor puppy or adolescent or whatever, that dog is not also learning to be afraid of other dogs or to be on guard around other dogs. So that's something that we do sometimes. If we have somebody who we're doing pre-adoption consulting with, they have a dog in the home, we sometimes start with some training with their current dog to sort of get everybody on the right road and give everybody some training shots and make sure that we have a plan in place for the new pup not to learn problematic behaviors or have sort of emotional contagion from the previous dog. So I'm going to wrap up with questions for right now, so we have time to go over some resources. Unless anybody has a last burning question, or Nicole, if you have a follow-up, let me know if that made sense, or if you have a follow-up to that before I switch to the resources. Well, just chime in if you do. I'm sorry you're going through that. All right, so In terms of additional resources and information, as I've talked about quite a bit, we do help people to try to find the right dog. That can in some ways be the hardest part of the process, because not every dog, you know, is comfortable or happy in public. So if that is a goal for you, what we recommend is first watching our free informational video on our website about what's involved with service dog training, costs, time, you know, and then there's like a list of traits to look for in a dog and sort of how to think about beginning to assess the dog that you do have to see if they're likely candidates. And then from there, we have our pre-adoption package. So that's a 3-hour webinar, as well as a lot of written materials on should I get a program dog? Should I train my own? You know, the pros and cons for a number of different situations to help you make the right decision around that for you, because there's a lot of individual variables. You know, is it better to get an adult or a puppy? Is it better to get a dog from a breeder or a rescue? All the pros and cons of those, again, and considerations for individual situations. And then a lot of information about what to look for in a service dog in you know, in terms of temperament and health and breed and things like that. Lori just put the information on that in the chat, and that's I believe it's $135 for that whole package, and you can just order that directly. And then we also, if you do all that and you decide, yeah, I really want to go forward with this and I really want to have the best option possible of training my dog, then there would be an individual consultation, pre-adoption consult, and dog search support. And that's 5 hours also of individual help with the search process. And what we've really found is that is where the rubber meets the road. And that is really the difference for a lot of our clients in getting a dog that works out. This is the big announcement that I alluded to earlier. We announced this last month at our Q&A session. It's not on our website yet, so it's not out there for the general public. And already our first class and half of the second class have filled. So this is our new program. It's the Dogs in Service Certification Program. It's a series of courses that are designed exclusively for people who are training their own service dog. We start with puppies and we take you up to public access and tasks. As I said, classes are kept small, so it's 5 teams maximum. Trainer is there teaching and coaching the whole way. So even though it's online, it's still live and hands-on. The first class, the first class is called Pearl. And I'll get to that in a second. One of the nice things about it is that you are training with other people who are also training their own service dogs. So everybody knows where everybody's coming from. We also have Client Portal, which is our library of videos and handouts, hundreds of handouts and videos that you have access to forevermore. Our private Facebook group, and where you can post videos and pictures and chat about your dog. And then also a recording of each class, so you can watch the recording if you missed the class, and the homework sheets. So it's a 10-week, each one is a 10-week course. The first one, Pearl, is geared for puppies that are 8 weeks and up, or for any adult or adolescent dogs too. And each class focuses on a real life situation, a real life service dog situation. So one class takes you through what to do if you're bringing your dog with you to the hospital, like you're going to the ER, or you know, getting your dog used to the sounds there, what specific behaviors to train for that. So you can start training on that before you're in the situation where you're overwhelmed or your dog is overwhelmed. So you know what to do with that, or how to bring your dog to a restaurant and the skills that they need for that, and how to train those things. We also have, like I mentioned, some shorter classes if you're not sure if online dog training sounds like the right thing for you, you can take our Helping Hounds class. The first one is it's a 4-session class. It's only $135 for the 4 sessions. And you learn some tricks that are the foundations for future tasks. That also works for therapy dogs as well as service dogs. We also, like I said, have the informational video on our website. We have a lot of questions and answers on our website and a lot of information on our Facebook page, as well as our bi-monthly newsletter. So if you're not subscribed to that, there's a lot of resources and tips on that. I'm trying to think if there was anything that came up during the conversation that we need to email folks about. We email out some handouts depending on what people have asked, but I don't remember anything that specifically came up. Lori, did I miss anything? Last time that people were asking like legal questions, I don't think there were any of those this time. So
there was, I was just going to say, there was a few questions about therapy dogs, and Nicole had finished up with an extra question on that.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if, I'm not sure though, if you have specific resources on that.
We do have a therapy dog handout. So Nicole isn't here anymore, but we can send that to her. So we have a therapy dog handout, and we do get a lot of therapy dog teams in Helping Hounds. It's for both therapy dogs and service dogs. So that's an option for that as well. Sometimes depending on where they're located, we do some private training with them. Again, depending on the situation, it could be appropriate for them to do a DISC class, but we would reach out to them about that. Yeah, thank you. Okay, well, great. Thank you so much for your questions. It was great to meet you, and good luck with your dogs. It sounds like everybody's got some wonderful dogs here, and feel free to reach out if you have questions in the future.